Well, hello there, YouTube. This is Noob DM Ariel coming back at you from gorgeous Northern California. And this is a rare midweek video for you about Dungeons and Dragons. And we are going to be continuing today our look at some of my favorite Dungeons and Dragons supplements for all the editions of D&D. Just a couple of days ago, it was announced that Wizards of the Coast is working on releasing a sixth edition of D&D, which is not surprise to anybody. It's going to come out in 2020. Well, some of the supplements I think will come out in 2022, and then after I think they're planning a 2024 release, if I remember correctly. This was announced in the recent panel D&D celebration. Which was titled "The Future of D&D." But today we're not talking about the future. Today we're talking about the current version of the game and everything that came before it. And we're talking about specifically the supplements for the game. This is the second part of a series that I'm running regarding the D&D supplements. Last time we looked at 5th edition, so now we're going back to 4th edition, which was not a very popular edition of the game, I know, but I still liked it, and there's still some supplements that I did like. And I'm going to talk about the Eberron campaign, or the Eberron setting, I should say, D&D setting of Eberron, which started with 3rd edition and continued into 4th and 5th edition, current editions of the game. So let's get started on this somewhat retrospective of the supplement for 4th edition. All right. Well, when I started doing research to look into the supplement for 4th edition, I realized that I didn't really have a whole lot of 4th edition supplements because I didn't really run 4th edition campaigns. I was a player in a number of 4th edition campaigns that I did enjoy. So I had the core books, the Player's Handbook, Dungeon Masters, and the Monster Manual, but I didn't really have a whole lot of campaign supplements, except I did pick up this book, which is the Eberrons Player's Guide, 4th edition Eberrons Player's Guide, and I have a lot of fond memories. I'm very fond of this book, although I didn't really use it that much to play the tabletop game. At the time that I purchased it, I bought it at the Barnes and I remember distinctly going into the Barnes and Noble bookstore and picking it up without hesitation because I was a big fan of the Dungeons and Dragons online game, which came out by Turbine around 2006, if I'm not mistaken. And I didn't know a lot about Eberron, the campaign itself, or the Eberron world. I had no idea that that there was even a setting. I mean, I was familiar with the D&D settings like the Forgotten Realms and some of the more famous ones. But the Eberron campaign is new to 3rd edition and got carried over to 4th edition, like I already said. And I picked up the Player's Guide just so that I could familiarize myself more with the world. And so that's why it's one of my favorite supplements. And if you're not familiar with Eberron at all, it's sort of like a setting that was proposed by a player or a fan, and it got picked up by Wizards of the Coast and developed. And in this world, in this fantasy setting, it's sort of a mixture between magic and a steampunk aesthetic, which was kind of a weird choice for Dungeons and Dragons Online. I think I mentioned this during my DDO video about creating a character in DDO or Dungeons and Dragons Online, the video game and the MMO. And basically, that's why I was interested in Eberron, because I didn't know much about the world. And by the time I was playing the game around 2007, 2008, the 4th edition of D&D was already out, and so I picked up the Player's Guide, and it is a really good supplement. It talks about life in Eberron and the world, and basically like it gives important facts about Eberron. One that one fact that they do give out is the tone and attitude. It basically says that Eberron takes all the cinematic action and swashbuckling adventure of traditional D&D games and adds in a strong dose of mystery and scheming. In this campaign, stories don't always end well, and there isn't always a right answer to every problem. And the last war turned old allies into bitter enemies and destroyed an entire nation. So there's this big war that they call the last war. And if you play DDO, then you have people that fought, characters that fought in the last war. It's a world of magic. The setting supposes a world that developed not through the advancements of science, but by the mastery of magic. And also, it's a world of adventure from the streaming jungles of Arenal to the colossal ruins of Xendrix, from the towering keeps of Sharn to the blasted hills and valleys of the Demon Wastes. Eberron is a world of action and adventure, according to the book. It does talk about the last war. The last war ended, sort of. It kind of plunged the continent of Corvair into a civil war more than a century ago, and it ended with the signing of the Treaty of Throne World and the establishment of 12 recognized nations occupying what was once the Kingdom of Kalistar. So he talks about the politics. The Draconic Prophecy is the dragons that long lived and were patient in all things. They were seeking meaning in the patterns found in the world and the heavens, and there's a prophecy that plays a big part in it, and that led to the Five Nations, which is the human-dominated civilizations on the continent of Corvair, and they trace a lineage to the ancient kingdom of Galifar, which was made of five distinct regions or nations. And it it has a really nice couple of maps. I'll probably maybe link to them or add them to this video, but it has a nice couple of maps detailing the continent of Corvair, which is one of the main or the main continent, and it also talks about the plains of Eberron, like different continents. So I like that. If you're um, running a fifth edition campaign, there is a fifth edition campaign setting for or a campaign book for Eberron. So if you're interested in picking that up, you can. I have enough material and enough information about characters and races from Eberron. So I from this fourth edition supplement. So I kind of don't see a need to pick up the new one. I don't know how many adventures in Eberron I'll be able to run or participate in. So I'm pretty good with what I got on the fourth edition supplement, even though it's really hard to translate like a fourth edition to do a full translation of fourth edition characters and classes and stats all the way to the fifth edition because it's such a different system. So it doesn't really work, but you can try to I guess theoretically do a translation as much as you can. Um, I don't know what the new races are in the fifth edition, but in the fourth edition setting, you had the changelings, which are basically changelings are like creatures that can alter their physical form to take on the appearance of medium humanoids, and then you have the Kalistar where they look similar to humans, but their outward appearance masks an inner demeanor that is once serene and wild, cerebral and mad. Um, and so the book would say if you can play a Kalistar if you want to play a wise and contemplative character who's capable of monetary madness, or to be a stranger in a strange land where every place you visit is full of wonder, or if you just want to be a fugitive on the run from enemies that could be anyone and anywhere, or to be a member of a race that favors the bard, cleric, paladin, and warlock classes. So if you're gonna play the bard, a cleric, a paladin, or a warlock, then you can choose this race. And there's also, of course, the Warforged. There's a photo in this background here of the Warforged, and the Warforged are my favorite. They are. I was playing a Warforged for a long time in the Dungeons and this kind of going through this supplement kind of makes me want to go back, and maybe I'll do that this month and play some more Dungeons and Dragons online. Although with the free version of the game now, you kind of have to. You only get limited races, so you have to actually pay for a Warforged, but it's not like a whole lot. Um, Let's see. The Warforged is basically what they are is like living constructs. They look like robots, but they are constructs, and so they were designed to fight in the war. And they don't need to eat, drink, breathe, or sleep. You never have to do an endurance check for them to resist the effects of starvation, thirst, or suffocation because they don't do any of that. They're not alive. I mean, they're sentient, but they're not. They don't have the limitations, and all other conditions and effects affect them normally. So if the book says you can play at Warforged if you want to be strong, if you want to be tough and built for battle, and to be a creature searching for the meaning of your existence, which I think is a really interesting part of the characters or of this specific class or race rather. The Warforged are a class they don't. I mean, the last war ended, and so they're back in the world of Eberron, but they don't really have a place in there. They're trying to find a place in the world. It's kind of like the Data character from Star Trek: the Generation, where he's a droid. I'm sorry, he's an android, but he's trying to be fit in a world of humans. It's kind of like sort of the same concept where they don't know where they fit now because they have to find a purpose in life because their whole purpose was to be a construct. They were designed to participate as warriors in a big conflict, and now that the conflict is over, what do they do with themselves? What is their place in society? And so I think that's part of what I like about the class, to be honest, also that they're very interesting in their motivations, and you can role play that any way you want. And to be if you can play a Warforged, you want to be a member of a race that favors the fighter, a barbarian, warden, and paladin classes. So warden class was a fourth edition class. I'm not sure if it's part of it. I don't think it's part of the fifth edition class unless it's part of a supplement I don't own. But definitely fighter, barbarian, and paladin classes are still available in the new edition. And it's got the essential fighter classes are what the Warforged were part of. It has other races too. Like if you want to, the world of Eberron is pretty diverse. So there's Goliaths, which I think the Goliaths made their debut in third edition and got ported over to fourth. And I could be wrong about that, but they're definitely in the fourth edition. And they have the half elves, half orcs, normal races. But they also have like shifters and tieflings. Shifters are called weretouch by many. They're among Eberron's most distrusted and persecuted races. People often hate them because they can shift. And then the tieflings are diabolical. They made a diabolical pact with their ancestors, and they remain one of the most enigmatic of the races of Eberron. Tieflings, of course, are around for third and fourth, and got carried into the fifth edition of the game. Then it goes into the classes like an Artificer. And the Artificer was a new class that they brought into DDO, the video game version. But it originated here in the tabletop, of course. And then it gives you all the powers or spells that the Artificer can have, or some of these characters can have, because some of them are spellcasters, some of them are not. And then it talks about the dragon marked paragon paths. There's a different they had the fourth edition. They have all these paths that your character can take, and one of them is the dragon mark, where you get different dragon marks that give you different powers, or different motivations in the world of Eberron. And then they do talk about the book. Even has some of the more notable non-player characters, NPCs. Some of these NPCs I know from DDO, again, from playing the online game, like Jorasco Jadehand, who is he's kind of like an MS part of House Jorasco. There's the different houses of power in Eberron. So you have him, and you have the Kundarak Gorandin, Lyrandar Windrider, some of the more fame or notable organizations too, like the Orion Swiftblade, and the Tharash Wayfinder. So you have different organizations that only exist in the world of Eberron, which is really cool. This book really goes into the detail of that, and then it gives you some character options like the different feats, because the feats were carried over from third edition to fourth edition. But in fourth edition, they have different tiers of feats. So depending on what level you are, you're a specific tier of progression in the game, and so you'll have different levels and you'll have different feats. But the more mechanical part of the supplement, obviously, with a new edition of the game, is not really all that valuable to new players because not a lot of people are, not some people are, but not a lot of people are playing fourth edition now. They're playing fifth. But you can use the different equipment and weapons that are in the supplement. You can use the historical information about the classes and the races that are unique to Eberron. That doesn't change. And you can also use like the different magic items. It goes into a whole section of magic items and holy symbols for clerics and different character types that are still viable, that you can still sort of bring into your fifth edition campaign. Um, and it talks about the unique components of the Warforged and rituals, goes into some rituals. And then the final chapter of the book is all about the world of Eberron. So that talks about the five nations, the people of the five nations. It's information that a dungeon master can use, even if you're playing fifth edition. They changed some things around. I read online for Eberron in fifth edition, but most of it is still the same, or it's pretty similar. So you can look at the terrain, the demographics, and some of the specifics of the Eberron campaign setting, and apply them from this supplement to your own campaigns that you're running in the in the new book. So that's just a short look at my favorite fourth edition um, supplement for the reasons I stated. It's because it's so unique in terms of like a campaign setting, and also because it's the very first setting that they used for the Dungeons and Dragons before they had any expansions, of course, and any adventure packs that could keep adding to Dungeons and Dragons Online. This was the where you learned about Eberron and you learned about airships and you had that whole um, aesthetic of steampunk. So if you like the steampunk type of aesthetic and you like magic combined with suspense, kind of like a noirish type setting, then you're gonna love this campaign. And I do love Eberron. I think that it's one of the most unique settings in Dungeons and Dragons. I had no problem playing Dungeons and Dragons online, and becoming familiar and with this world and with this campaign setting. And the Eberron's Player Guide for fourth edition by David Noonan, Ari Marnell, and Robert Schwab. It helped me a lot to get familiar. So it's always going to be one of my favorite fourth edition supplements. So if you like this content, that's all I have for today. Thank you for tuning in. If you like this content, I want to see more, go ahead and hit the like and hit the subscribe icon, or do both. And I will talk to you next time when I will be discussing my favorite supplement for the third edition version of Dungeons and Dragons.